You know, Seattle is a technology mecca to the world. Probably some of the smartest folks in the world live there, but not when it necessarily comes to the local Seattle Council. That in the middle of all the crime and violence and the disruption, you know, zoning off a 6-block area that resulted in still more violence. In the middle of that, given the first actions it could make as it regrouped, that is the council, it comes up with a tax on big businesses that pay high salaries. Now, I'm not saying that is not an unimportant issue down the road, but it's sort of like ignoring the fire that's right outside your house. Rebecca Walser, I don't know if this solves anything. We can get into the wisdom of taxing companies that go about this, but you seem to have, not you in particular, but Seattle, more immediate problems on your streets. What do you think?
Yes, Neil, this is a big problem. You know, they tried something like this 2 years ago in 2018, and they were faced with a voter referendum. They basically repealed it automatically. But what's happened since then is 5 council members that were pro-business, that maybe were supportive of Amazon before, were replaced. And now you have a 7-2 vote that basically said, yes, we're going to tax any company that pays more than $7 million a year. So a lot of, I'm seeing these words as big business. $7 million a year is what we would consider a middle market company, or even small to middle market companies. So we're not talking about just the Amazons. These are going to be impacting a lot of businesses. And for anybody that's being paid over $150,000, they're going to charge them a tiered tax anywhere from 0.7 to 2.4%, which is going to put Seattle at the top tax rate for state sales tax and local tax, or local tax, what we call it in the tax world. And it's shocking, Neil, and here's why it's shocking. Not only is it such a almost a punitive tax, I would say at this point, but what are they getting for this tax? What are the services? You know, you've got a class action business lawsuit going on against the city of Seattle that's been filed by businesses that were basically considered held hostage in the zone, the autonomous zone, because they were completely without any services. They were left to their own devices, sort of abandoned by the city, and now they're coming back, the city's coming back and saying, and now we want to increase your taxes if you're, you know, paying more than $7 million in payroll out a year. I can't believe it. I'm shocked.
Well, they're also separately looking at an asset tax as well. Amazon, of course, his headquarters are there. He is the richest man on earth right now, and by far, with a run-up in his stock well over $3,000. So, you know, tax some of the assets. From what I've read and seen in Seattle, the issue isn't a lack of money. It's more an issue of wasting a lot of money. So just getting more of it won't alleviate the homeless problem, won't alleviate the disruptions that the city saw, and pretty violent ones themselves, the past month. So I'm wondering if they're just making business out to be the villain here, because they get plenty of dough. It's just going to weird places.
You know, Neil, there's been some great documentaries on Seattle that are non-political. They have no political bent, but it actually tracks the police officers. And one guy, I watched one documentary that the guy had been with the force of Seattle for over 20 years, and he just said, you know what, it's pointless because we arrest these people, they literally get released immediately with no bond, no jail time, and it's just there's no point. And what they have in Seattle is a very big heart for homeless people. But what that's done, and they have all these drug programs where they can, you know, have their safety for their drugs and all these things. All that's done is attract the homeless people. And so you're getting more and more people that are coming, and less businesses, because there's no protections of theft. You know, some cities in California consider theft under a certain level as not a crime. They're not going to pursue it. They're not going to actually prosecute it. So when you have these kinds of policies, it attracts those kinds of people, and businesses get pushed out, or they get turned out because their clients can't come into their door without fear of, you know, having to deal with that kind of population. So there has to be some sort of law and order for these services, or businesses will just not agree to pay these taxes, and they'll move. And Amazon is as great as Jeff Bezos might be the first trillionaire we ever have seen. Amazon still has to answer to shareholders, and they will have to say, hey, does it make sense for us to continue to remain in Seattle? And if this keeps going, they're gonna say no. At some point, they're going to say no. This is not logical.
Yeah, it's one thing to sort of bite the hand that feeds you. It's quite another to sort of gnaw on the arm and the rest of the limbs as well. And that's kind of what's going on there. Rebecca Walser, thank you very much. We're monitoring this one closely because